Hello, everyone, and a very good afternoon to all the folks joining in. A very good afternoon to all the folks joining in from the SA region, and a very good morning to everyone joining from the other regions and other parts of the world on a Thursday afternoon. We'd like to start the webinar, but before that, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the day, that's Abhishek Sehgal. A quick introduction about Abhishek. He's a technological professional digitizing APAC with route to market digitization. He's a tech enthusiast from a business background. Abhishek is passionate about solving supply chain problems and helping businesses amplify their market potential. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Rishita. Good afternoon, good morning to everybody who is joining in. Let me also quickly introduce some of our speakers, or as we like to call them, our growth drivers in the industry. First, we have Harshit Bora. He is the business head for the APAC region in Bizom. Harshit Bora is a sales and distribution expert at Bizom and has demonstrated experience in some of the top FMCG companies like Dukes, Reliance, and Parag as well. We also, joining us on our panel of speakers, have Arpita Junjunwala. She is a VP of Customer Success here at Bizom, and Arpita specializes in RTM, digitization, and solutioning around the CPG industry. She is excellent at driving revenue for a lot of clients. In addition to that, she is also well-versed across verticals, countries, and cultures, and has a lot of unique insights that could help with strategic growth. Thank you once again for joining us today. Now that we've really introduced our speakers, we can begin the webinar. And just a full disclosure, all the attendees, please feel free to ask any questions that you have in the chat box, and we will go through them and provide you with answers. Right? So let's start off quickly and let's dive into having an understanding of the FMCG market structure. And for that, I'd like to ask Harshit Bora to just give us an overview of what the FMCG industry looks like in Vietnam and what are some of the channels that are doing well.
Hey, thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for the introduction and good afternoon to everyone. So talking about FMCG industry in Vietnam, Vietnam's consumer market is evolving very rapidly. Vietnam remains a prominent market in terms of GDP contribution with a growth rate of around 8% over the last couple of years, and is one of the highest in the Southeast Asia region. Right. Vietnam is also expected to be the 10th largest consumer market by 2030. Currently, it is at 35. So, we can see that it will be expected to jump around 25 places in next 7 to 8 years. The driver to this growth would be obviously FMCG industry, which is posting a growth rate of around 10% for last 10 years. When we drill down to this, we see that significant of this growth is also coming from the rural areas of Vietnam. And then when we see the channel mix, GT, MT, GT is around 65%, modern trade is around 35% of the retail sales, for the consumer goods are contributing from these channels. However, online channel has also grown significantly in the last 3-4 years and is now contributing to around 5% of the overall retail sales. In the current global environment, inflation is also a very important, driver for the growth in Vietnam, and it is expected to be there, which will affect both the consumer and the businesses as well. To thrive in this market and this evolving landscape, the brands must need to understand what are the consumer priorities. They need to adapt and embrace technology, not only to optimize the distributor channels and also increase their margins, but also to engage with the consumers that are shifting to the digitalized life. The government has also recognized that there is a digitalization wave that is going across across the country, and they have come up with a comprehensive national digital transformation program. So to facilitate this digitalization for the consumers. In conclusion, what we can say is that Vietnam industry is experiencing remarkable growth and is transforming, driven by increasing consumer power, shifts in habits of purchasing, and digitalization. So this dynamic environment presents, a both challenge and opportunity for the businesses to capitalize on this market.
Great to hear that the industry is actually picking up, in fact, skyrocketing in Vietnam. Arpita, I'd like to pose a question for you as well. Since you've been in the space and heavily involved with route to market, how has the strategies around route to market been changing in Vietnam? And also, could you hint at, what are some of the key factors that are driving these changes? Also, just for the audience, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more and clarify what route to market exactly is, route to market RTM. Over to you, Arpita.
Sure. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for the question. Like you said, I will answer this question in two parts. The first being route to market, right? So route to market is often confused along with supply chain management end to end. However, that's a misconception, because actually when you talk about route to market, it means once the product which is supposed to be made is finished and is ready for the consumer to consume, that is when RTM comes in place. And it is when a brand, company, or a product owner is trying to build channels to ensure that the product is available for the end customer and consumer. That would involve, right from channel partner onboarding to ensuring that you have a space at their warehouse. Along with that, understanding the nuances and what ticks the customers to shelf your product at their POSMs, right? Along with POC relationship management, and of course, then ensuring that it is visible and on ground for your consumers and customers to then drive the offtake. That is what we understand from the word RTM. Now, coming to your second question, where you ask me about what are the RTM strategies and challenges which has been there in Vietnam, or what we have experienced. So like my colleague pointed out, Harshit, thank you for that, that Vietnam is of course a hotspot in the Asian market, right? Especially in the last 2 decades or so, we see a lot of international brands now entering this market, allowing it to be it's almost a tug of war to get the share of wallet from the POC owners and the share of mind from consumers. So along with this, bilateral policies have been made by the government to kind of initiate this growth and allow the international presence of brands, along with the local local presence of brands, of course, improving every year. Now, what we see as a major challenge is in Vietnam is that, very similar to other emerging markets, it's a very fragmented channel in terms of channels and markets. Like, you have rural growing at a higher pace than urban. Now, urban itself will have a separate set of challenges, while the hinterlands will have a separate set of challenges. Along with this, in rural, we see a lot of dominance of multi-layered distribution, because it is not very cost effective for industries to kind of go and ensure that they are in every POC. But what they try to do is that they build wholesale channels and channel partners in these distribution heavy areas to ensure that the margins are intact and they can earn some profit out of it. Of course, the fragmented market in terms of the MT, GT and rural spends, which Harshit just mentioned, add on to these, because then you also have to ensure that you're present in every channel. You have an omni-channel strategy to ensure that you're there in e-commerce, marketplaces, SAMT stores, your on-trade and off-trade stores as well. Along with this, what we see is that there's a lot of lack of network or heavy areas which are struggling with good network to kind of then add on to your challenge of multi-layer distribution. And the consumer sentiments which we spoke about, right? So micro market activations become extremely nuanced in Vietnam, especially given that every region will have their own culture mix when you compare a south to a north. And it becomes very important for brands to understand how do they design their RTM to ensure that they are capitalizing on the same and at the right time, at the right place with the right POC. So that is what I think are major challenges looming over RTM. While these are challenges, these are also opportunities, right? There are brands like Veena Milk who have now cracked it with omni-channel presence as same as well as modern trade. So it depends on how.
Looks like Arpita might be having a couple of network issues. Maybe we'll just wait for her to reconnect. In the meantime, Harshit, could you also expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, for the RTM part, what Arpita said, that there's a dynamic in the distribution channel, right? There is, for the hinterlands or the rural market, there would be multiple tier of distribution channels, but in the urban areas, it would be a single channel, single layer of distribution. So this is, I think, across emerging markets also, I see these trends, not just in Vietnam. And companies who can crack this model very easily, or who can transfer the knowledge of cracking in one market, can leverage that into the other market like Vietnam or Philippines or Indonesia, anywhere. So this helps them. That's why the global players, if you see a lot of global players are there, if they are in one country of the Southeast Asia, they would be across all the countries of Southeast Asia. Because the route to market is very similar in this.
Makes sense. Arpita, just rehashing with you, we maybe lost you when you were talking about how Veena Milk was had cracked it. So would you like to maybe just sum that up a bit?
Sure. So like I was mentioning, we see a lot of these locally grown players like Veena Milk now be like a epitome of how they have kind of hintered their way into all the channels, right? Now, if you go to Vietnam, you can see them on e-commerce, you can see them on D2C applications, you can see them on SAMT, you can see them on modern trade, on trade, off trade, etc. So it's like I was saying, the RTM might be challenging, but if we crack it, then at the same time, it is extremely rewarding, and it's an excellent opportunity for the company.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, like you said, Trudy, if you crack it, it would reap in a lot of rewards. And can you maybe dive in a bit more on that? How would this exactly, affect your P&L, your top line and bottom line? I think people would really like to understand that as well.
Sure. So like I said, urban and rural challenges will be very different. So when I'm talking about rural, we are extremely pressed for margins when we look at it, because there are multiple more channel partners which you will have to engage. Right. So that itself puts a lot of pressure on your profitability. And that is where the entire excellence of efficiency becomes extremely important, because the moment you optimize your RTM to be able to cater to leakages and improve efficiency at the same time, that is where you reduce your cost to serve. And that is how you kind of take away that profit home. Right. The second is, of course, the price conflict across channels. Right. Now, you can imagine if there are 5 channels competing to get the same consumer wallet, then there will be some price conflict which will come in. So, a wholesaler will be giving them at a cheaper rate, whereas an SAMT might be even more cost effective for the consumer because of their bulk buying purchase, whereas, the retailer will have no stand across it. So hence, it becomes very important to capture that as well. We also see a lot of leakages happening in trade promotion management across these channels, making it even more important to ensure that you are squeezing the last inch of your budget to ensure that these trade promotion management or the trade promotions which you want to run in each channel is segregated, as well as is reaping you benefit instead of eating away on each other. Right. So consumer journey, of course, becomes another pain point, because every micro market will you're capturing all of their share of mind and wallet becomes extremely important again. And the major challenge that we see in Vietnam is that there's no POS data readily available, right? So of course, there are technologies in place to get you second-hand information, but you don't really know which product or which line of yours is driving the actual offtake, apart from repeat purchases coming in. So yeah, that is my sense of what the major challenges are with your P&L when it comes to RTM. And it, of course, is a major cost center for every company. So hence efficiency is the key to kind of drive that across.
Great to hear about that. We often hear in the world that technology really is driving change and growth in a lot of industries. What do you think is the technological upgrade that can be used in the Vietnam market to build a better and more sustainable supply chain, Arpita?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Abhishek. Actually, it's very interesting, especially at this time for Vietnam, because if you read any report from any of the consultants today and the big technology giants, right, they have now named Vietnam as a dragon unleashed when it comes to technology, especially since 2018. We see a lot of interventions and, in fact, USPs which are coming across and disrupting each industry. I was recently reading up about this application called Apota, which has revolutionized the way you use gaming. In fact, they have now extended their application to now become an entire entertainment stack, along with giving consumers a way to kind of adopt it better by helping them solve more use cases. Like recently they launched something as intuitive as a smart lock, right? Like one lock application which can help you with your front doors till your suitcases, which to me is ingenious. Similarly, when I talk about SCM, Vietnam has always been ahead of times in terms of, being the center of the textile industry for the globe. Along with that, we see a group called Royal Spirit Group actually using a lot of technology to build sustainability at its core and help them drive the sustainability value. They have done very small interventions like using the water which they use for hand washing and dishwashing and repurposing that to a terrace garden, right? That itself speaks volume about how small digital interventions itself can help you revolutionize an industry. When I come to the question on how can we help to do RTM strategies, what we see is that Vietnam is a little challenging in terms of the CPG perspective, because we still see a lot of adoption challenges and a lot of manual interventions, right? So post digital revolution, we see a lot of these pen and paper shifting to and Zalo, but we still don't see a lot of automation coming in terms of manual entry of data versus getting the POS data somewhere which is automated, right? Hence, giving us the right opportunity to intervene, because the opportunity, like I said, is immense, and kind of helping Vietnam RTM to be seamless with an integrated platform of sorts. That is my sense of what we can kind of do with technology in RTM space, right from IoT, IoT interventions for auto replenishment of stock to AI ML to, help you forecast your demand, make your production plans, and help you plan your budgets for trade promotions.
Appreciate your response. Yes, so tech can 100% change the RTM landscape in Vietnam, and we hope in the coming years that large steps are taken towards that. That being said, Harshit, wanted to come back to you. Apart from the FMCG sector, what are the other fields that you really see that are growing astronomically in the Vietnam market, like as to FMCG?
That's a good question to, thanks for asking that, Abhishek. What I see is that, there are three sectors that are, driving the Vietnam's economy, or are going to drive the Vietnam's economy in next decade or so. One is obviously the pharma industry, as it is projected to grow or double itself by 2026, largely because of the efforts of Vietnamese government's goal of achieving universal health coverage, as well as combined efforts from the consumers who want accessible healthcare, better healthcare, and so. The second industry that I see has a huge potential or upside is automotive industry. primarily because the purchasing power of the people is going up. Currently, the car ownership per capita is very low for the Vietnamese household. It is currently around 6%, which is even lower than India or Philippines. And by 2025, it will be going to 9%, and by 2030, it will be reaching 30%. Right. So we can see there's almost 6 times growth in the automotive industry that is projected by everyone. And then the third one is the coffee industry. Vietnam is currently the world's second largest coffee exporter, just behind Brazil. In 2021, it exported around 3.1 billion of coffee. And in terms of agri export, it commands around 90% of the share, right? So what government has done is they have understood that the coffee is the largest exporter, and because they are selling beans, the value of that beans is very low as compared to the processed coffee. So government has started promoting the shift towards the processed coffee from exporting just beans. So many experts also believe that Vietnam has a very high potential to overtake Brazil also, due to its favorable climate conditions, lower cost production, as well as vicinity of where the country is placed, right? So it has a very good networks to China, India, which are potentially going to be the top consumers for coffee in next decade or so. So these are 3 industry, I think. But so because Arpita is with us, I just wanted to understand from Arpita. Arpita, you have been solving a lot of challenges when it comes to RTM for FMCG industry and other brands in in also automotive industry in other geographies. How do you think that automotive industry, which is projected to grow by 6 times in next 1 decade, how can they leverage FMCG RTM experience in Vietnam?
So thank you for that question, Harshit. Honestly, when I think about it, what I feel is that once you sell a car, there is an entire life cycle of customer which you have to manage, right? Which may be in SaaS, which we call it as lifetime value for customer. But for automobile, it is extremely important to give them a post-purchase service, which is extremely beneficial and seamless for a customer to kind of relate to that brand and become a subset of their experience altogether. So there itself, I think FMCG as a supply chain is being leveraged and has been leveraged time and again to ensure that right from spare part delivery to your service automation, scheduling, ensuring that
cut you off. I think we lost you a bit, maybe for 5 seconds. So could you just backtrack if you don't mind?
Sure. Am I audible and visible now?
Yeah, perfect now.
Yeah, great. No, so I was just talking about the fact that once you sell a car, there's an entire customer life cycle which you have to manage, right? Their FMCG supply chain can be leveraged in terms of partnering up with synergy to your service management, service scheduling. All of that can be clubbed with that RTM of your FMCG itself to understand you have service channel partners, you have spare parts channel partners, you have client relationship manager to the entire CPG space which we work in. So hence it becomes imperative to understand automobile growth and see how can we intervene there to help them optimize the entire client user experience with the brand. Does that answer your question, Harshit?
Yes. I think servicing is the key. Servicing is the key means you need to reach all the spare parts of your vehicles to those key stakeholders who would be doing the servicing, which can enable the potential for the automotive industry. Yeah, thank you, Arpita, for that.
Great. Thank you once again, Arpita and Harshit, for answering those questions. Speaking of coffee, we'll have maybe it's not a coffee break, but a short interaction with the audience. We have a poll question for everybody. I'll read the question out as well as the options, and please feel free to go ahead and think and select the option you think is right. The question is, what is the most pressing supply chain challenge for FMCG companies in Vietnam, right? And the options are last mile delivery, warehouse management, import-export regulations, or merchandising difficulties. So please go ahead. We have about 30 seconds for everybody to select what they think is right. Please do go ahead and answer that poll question. Great. I think we'll come back to the answers later on in the webinar. Arpita, once again, like to move on and place the next question in front of you. Can you also share some examples of successful RTM strategies that have been implemented in Vietnam, and also just dive into what exactly it was that made them effective? Because in our experience, as we have spoke, the RTM space is ripe for digital disruption, and we'd like to learn more from you as well.
Sure. So thank you again for the question, Abhishek. I hope I'm audible and visible. When I'm talking about RTM, the backbone of any RTM strategy will be the people driving it, right? But at the same time, what digital technology can do for them is help them make their lives easier, and along with that give them a single source of truth, which then becomes your base for optimization and innovation, right? So like we established that now that the Vietnam market is ready for that disruption to happen, in our company we call our algorithmic jugars, which really help maneuver towards our multi distribution systems, right? Especially given the fact that every user persona will have a different way of adopting that technology. So
Arpita, if you can hear me, I think we will have to backtrack again. Maybe a couple of seconds. We lost you, maybe 4 seconds back. Yeah.
Sure. So like I was saying that with the technology
Arpita, I have to break you off again.
A single source of truth.
Yeah. Harshit, maybe you can take over and help us with the answer to that question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, just can you repeat the question, Abhishek?
Sure. So we just wanted to understand and learn a bit more about some examples of successful RTM strategies that have been implemented in Vietnam, and also what made them effective strategies in the Vietnam space.
Okay, just I think one of the implementation where we did very well was in one of the largest alcobev company. They had a lot of challenges because they were basically starting with pen and paper. They faced a lot of issues with what is the offtakes that is happening, because they were in complete darkness out of that. And in Vietnam, you can see a lot of beer is consumed even out of home, right? So it's not that you have to be inside home or do something like. So it became very difficult for them to see what is the offtake that is happening from the outlets, real-time offtakes. So what we did was we deployed a technology with the QR codes integrated with with the refrigerator, and then whenever a bottle was opened, with that for that designated a brand bottle with the brand bottle opener, we could actually figure out what is the out of home consumption that is happening. Another similar is for the emerging markets, we needed a lot of localized solution. So we understood the points, their pain points, and pivoted the solution so that the system can be used by the local people, very easy to use and without any sort of training programs that are required to be used. So that sort of easy to use route to market approach we had to do. Adding to that, we also there was a lot of shift that was happening to the online.